This is a demo for greatquoter.com, and we're now going to do a standalone EPL quote and just walk you through that process. It's really easy. Within a matter of 4 or 5 minutes, you'll have your quote emailed to you and ready to present it to your client. So we'll go to greatquoter.com, and the product selections icons will be on the screen, and just select on employment practices here. You'll notice that if you want a full private company D&O, EPL, and fiduciary quote, there's a separate icon for that. In this case, we're just going to do a standalone EPL quote, so we'll click on the orange icon and get that process started. So the great thing about greatquoter.com is you can get a quick indication really quickly and then continue on with your quote if you want to. With the indicator, it's really just nature of operations, average salary, the company state, and then the number of employees. So it's a real quick process. There's a drop-down box for the class of business selection. If you're not sure where to put it, you can look it up. Click look it up, type in what type of organization it is, click search, and then the nature of operations will come up. In some cases, multiple nature of operations will come up based on a search criteria, and you can select the best one. So I'm going to click on restaurants and catering and then click proceed, and that will fill in the correct nature of operations in the drop-down box. Next, average salary. In this case, I'm putting in 25,000 to 50,000. And then for the state, I'm entering Illinois, and we'll put this particular restaurant having 15 employees full-time and then 5 part-time employees for the purposes of this indication. Click on the quick indication button, and your premium and retention will appear on the screen. This is for a $1 million limit, and to continue on, just click Continue Quote. You'll enter the email address that you use with your Great American Underwriter. Click Submit, and get to the name and address portion of the application. In this case, I'm entering a test account. And the website is optional, and this particular entity is not publicly traded. So we're going to click Check Duplicates. That allows us to check our database to make sure we have not received this application from another broker. And as long as that is the case, we continue on with the application. HR contact information can be entered here. The HR contact information allows us to provide the HR contact with our loss control services. If you don't have that information when you're quoting, you can provide it at the time of binding. The next section of the application is actually pre-filled for you with the most common answers on most questions. And the first question asking whether or not there's additional entities. Moving on to if there are any other classes of business related to specific types of business that an organization might be involved with. In this case, we have a restaurant, and they're not involved in any of these other operations, so I'm going to leave the answer to no. We already entered the class of business. We're going to select years in operation on this particular example as more than 5 years, and then we can enter last year's number of employees, full-time and part-time, the average payroll, which we've entered from the quick indication area, and the turnover rate, historically speaking. In this case, I'm putting in 21 to 35%. And the final question on this page relates to whether or not there's any layoffs or early retirement programs planned for the organization. I'm going to leave that particular question at no. Click Continue Quote. And this is the final page of the application. It's a very short application. You can get your quote very quickly. The final questions relate mostly to prior claims activity and prior coverage. So this first question here is asking if there's been any prior litigation. And then the second question is actually asking the same thing with regard to any third-party litigation. And then we're asking about any prior coverage in this section, and then any knowledge related to whether or not the insured is aware of something that might cause a future claim. We'll leave those both at no, and we're going to continue the quote, and this will actually be the point where it creates our quote. Very simple process. In about 20 seconds, the quote will be emailed to you. And if your pop-up blocker is off, then the quote will appear on the screen. But regardless, the quote and actually the application that we just completed will be emailed directly to you. It's a real quick process. Again, 20-30 seconds, you'll have your quote in your inbox, and your underwriter is copied as well, so they can see the quote that you just completed and make sure to answer any questions that may come up at all. So you just would have to hit reply in the email that was sent, and that would be your underwriter on the account. So you can see the quote popped up on the screen. We have the endorsements and conditions, and then a couple limit options there. And all of the endorsement wording and endorsement descriptions are on the following pages. So going back to the final page of the quoting, you can then continue on and get a cyber quote, just answering a few more questions if you want a full cyber quote. Otherwise, if you want to quote another account, customize your quote with different limit options or retention options. And then finally, if you didn't want to do any of those actions, you can click log out, and that will take you back to our home page.